we had like an infinitely producible drug that we could use infinitely, and ignoring all concept of like deterrence in the justice system and whatever, if we could inject this school shooter with like a don't commit drugs or don't commit crimes drug, and it's like 100% effective, like, would you do that? The idea that you would do that is weird to me.
Jared, are you an empiricist or a rationalist? Do you know what I mean by that?
No.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
Stop. What
Alright, here's the hypothetical, right? Here's the hypothetical. Let's say that tomorrow we create, and it's extremely affordable, it's cheaper than plastic, it's perfectly sustainable for the environment, all of this shit, right? We create a drug that we can inject into people, and they're the same person but they don't commit crimes, right? But we can only do it after they commit crimes, or something like that, right? A person, not knowing that this drug exists, the same day goes in and shoots up a school, right? Kills like 30 kids or something. Do we give them the drug, or do we, and then let them go, like immediately, because they're rehabilitated? Do we give them the drug and let them go immediately? Like that's that's something that I find fucking insane.
Why? Like, okay, let's the thing
Because you have to be like a literal.
The problem of the families being like the family's emotional response. Let's say that's like accounted for, right? Like, say they either don't know this is happening, or like they're just fine.
All of those kids were orphans in Africa.
And we eliminate the problem of what's going to happen with, I talked about the get out of jail free card, because if we had this serum and then we could just inject it to criminals, that means everybody has. Yeah, exactly. So like that's the other thing. Those two things are accounted for. We can either have a situation in which somebody dies or somebody becomes a productive member of society. Absolutely, 100%. I would like this. This is obviously like a very philosophical argument. I will admit this is pretty subjective. I'm speaking like it's subjective right now, but that's just because I strongly believe that is the right choice.
That's inhuman. That's so bizarre. Like, when you said that you would, what was it, like, you get into, like, a car accident with a drunk driver, and he paralyzes you from the neck down, and you wouldn't want him imprisoned or like, life imprisoned, or you wouldn't want him killed, you wouldn't want...
Like I said, I gave a lot of preface. I gave a lot of preface to that, right? That, like, I don't know, because I'm not paralyzed from the waist down. That hasn't happened to me. Maybe my opinion would
Neither
change.
have I.
Yeah, but I mean, just like but in theory, right now, I would say no. I would, like, if I have the choice of that person being rehabilitated and like that was confirmed, then yeah, of course. Like,
that's fucking
well,
crazy.
I mean,
you have to be like some
drunk driving. He
beyond Gandhi Buddha level figure.
He probably like feels really bad as well. Like, that's not even that like
feels
weird.
bad. What the fuck do you mean? Drink drivers deserve to fucking die. They actually deserve to die.
That's ridiculous, dude. I don't think there's that many people that deserve to die. I don't agree with this concept of like deserving like shit.
God.
I don't know at any capacity. It's like you can only look at that on case-by-case basis. Like, if somebody like does a bunch of work and then you don't pay them, you can argue like, oh, they deserve work. But
I mean, if you're like
when you get to like these broader concepts, gone.
I mean, if you're like a literal pure like the outcome is the only thing that matters. Like, what is a good outcome to you? Like, I don't understand. Like,
that would provide the most happiness
for
the most amount of people.
But you put the clarification on like, if the family feels too sad, then I'm okay with retribution. But like, that's such a flimsy like barrier in the way, because it would take like a literal schizo person to not be upset.
Yeah.
There's a difference between like them being like, you can still punish the person. There's still like a we can try to figure out what is the most reasonable level of punishment.
But you said that you're only like, you don't care about any form of retributive punishment. It's only punishment for the sake of deterrence, and punishment in quotation marks for the sake of re-education and reformation.
Well, no. Punishment also in to relieve like mental stress, like I said.
Sure, but like,
those are the two reasons for it. And in an ideal world, I would like to push for like people caring less about that, but like I don't think we could ever achieve that.
Caring less about what?
We're analyzing
about
Being mad at people who paralyze you from the neck
yeah,
down.
basic,
Are you fucking serious?
basically that. Yeah, of course.
That's why I called it utopian.
It is.
Yeah, it is. I don't dispute that.
But it's like not even like a productive
Which is
position.
why I'm accounting for it. I'm not disregarding the fact that people are going to be emotive about that and want revenge. Like I
And
understand
you
that.
don't
That's like a
think
very
you
human
would be.
thing. I
Ever.
probably, like, I don't know. In theory, I would say no, because,
You
like,
actually-
logically, when I think about my thought process to do with anything else that's happened in my life, during this kind of thing, I've never had anyone do anything that fucked up to me, right? But
Yeah,
I've had
sure.
people, like, be pieces of shit to me, and I've never, like, really, like, every time I've kind of just thought, like, well,
Paralyzed from the neck down. Oh, she'll be
I
alright,
would literally
mate.
prefer everyone to be happy. That's
He
all I care
probably
about.
shouldn't. He probably
I mean,
shouldn't have
can
had
you not
those
even,
drinks
like,
and got behind the wheel. But you know, it's only my entire body.
Yeah, like can you not even like?
Yeah, it
conceive
sucks,
of
but
how bad it would be?
I don't prescribe, I don't apply blame to the person that hit me to be
that it's not because you have to preface it.
What are you?
I'm
Sorry,
so
wait,
confused.
no. What are you prefacing it with?
I'm prefacing it by saying, as long as that is in fact the best outcome, then of course. Like,
Okay.
if that leads to the most amount of happiness for the most amount of people, of course,
Do
right?
you see
So
why
you
that's
would be
a
happy.
bit crazy?
So would you? So you're fine with like culling all Jewish people if everyone hated Jews?
I mean, I don't... No, because I don't hate Jews. But,
Why
like...
does that matter? Your
That
thing
doesn't matter.
is-
Like
is
you
that
would be the one to die.
happiness.
If everyone immediately
Because
turned
I
3,000
come
times
first,
happier when
okay?
you died,
But you're not Jewish.
okay, then it's not an outcome. Like you're not purely based on outcomes then, right?
I'm purely based on the best outcome for myself, but when I am trying to prescribe the ways to act for everyone, I'm looking at the entire population, yeah. But like if it were to come to a situation in which I was affected specifically, I would argue for my case.
What's wrong with killing Jews?
Why don't you just say
I
that
like
man.
Jews.
I'm an
You don't
egoist?
like Jews. What Jewish?
Come on,
why
Lucky,
do
I
you
am an
like
knows
Jews?
what
egoist.
likes
I probably am an egoist.
Well, that's all you need to say then. Like, you don't need to justify it with like, well, the best outcome is the most people happy, like, etc. You should just say
No, because-
the best outcome is where I'm happy, and I don't
No,
like retribution
because
punishment.
that's not relevant. Because that doesn't matter. Because we're not talking about the best outcome for me. I'm trying to prescribe like behavior for like an entire population of people,
So
and
what's
like
wrong
how
with killing
we should
Jews?
act in general.
Well, now you're prescribing to.
You just
I'm
said it
saying
doesn't
that
matter
if-
what you think. What if everyone else in the world wants Jews
It
dead?
doesn't.
Is
It
fine?
doesn't. No, because like in this situation, I'm not affected like directly, I guess. And
What
like,
does that matter? Why
okay,
does that
fine.
matter? It's
Okay,
not about
fine.
you.
It's the best outcome for me then. Okay, are we happy now?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just trying to make it more consistent, right? Because if you're gonna add clarifications onto the best outcome, then it's not the best outcome. You understand that, right? Like,
Well,
and you
how
can
is
say
that
that I'm
true?
prescribing it to other people. You can say
Because
that I'm prescribing it to
sometimes
other
you
people, but
Then
then
we need to make clarifications to understand we're on the same page and to preface something so you don't like misunderstand what I'm saying. Like me clarifying something doesn't immediately disqualify it. I don't know why you think that.
No, but I understand the concept that the most amount of people being happy is the best outcome. Like, I understand that. That's why I was able to give you that ultimatum, that, you know, thing. And I expected you to say, yeah. Because, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, right? In that grand of a scale. But
Yeah.
we can totally apply that. If we single out the population of Germany, for example, we could justify the Holocaust. And I'm not even joking with that, because most people in Germany did hate Jews during World War II.
I don't know as well. Another thing would be, I don't really know how I feel about death, specifically like other people dying as well. So like, would them dying count against the happiness of a population?
Well, clearly
I mean,
it doesn't matter
probably.
because...
Because I wouldn't want to die, right? I guess it would?
But if it does, then you should be
Like-
factoring in the victim of the murders.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're not. You're saying that the only thing that is relevant is the outcome that the
Well, I'm
accused
pondering,
can
like,
bring
I'm
to
thinking-
society, or the emotional
It's a fucking-
trauma of the family. Sorry?
I just nearly said pondering, it felt weird. I felt like I was trying to sound clever. Okay. Okay, good. Well, I'm pondering that now, which is why I'm saying it. Like, I'm thinking, like, I don't really know exactly what I would do about, like, in a hypothetical about death, right? If we were to count that towards... if we were to count that towards, like, the like, unhappiness of a certain, like, of a population of people, then, like, then I would have to take that into account and, like, probably amend what I said. But I don't know exactly, because I haven't figured that out yet. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, sure.
But
I'm just saying that that's the problem. No,
why is that not consistent?
because you're saying I don't know. So like you don't have a position anymore. Right?
Well, in this hypothetical, right? I can still wait, I still have it's still logically consistent. I just don't know how this logic applies. I don't know how this like thought process applies to this situation. But
So,
I can still
I
be
can
like,
run it
well,
through,
my
right?
thought process, my goal in the end is to have the best outcome. I can still say that and say, well, I don't know how to produce the best outcome. All I know is that that is my goal. That's still morally consistent. Well,
No,
that's
you
still
can. No.
brother.
Sorry, let me clarify. You can say that your goal is to produce the best outcome, but when you don't know what the best outcome is, then you can't really advocate against something, right? Because you don't even know what the best outcome is anymore. Because you have to take in. Because let me run through the thing, right?
I can speculate still.
Yeah, but it's not really like consistent anymore, right? Unless you speculate something within
it just might not be useful.
It's just like.
It's a valid thought, like it's valid reasoning, but it doesn't lead to like a true it doesn't necessarily lead to a true premise or a certain premise. It's still like valid logic.
Let me try and summarize, right? So at first, it was like your position was I value the outcome of the most people being happy, or the most people being as happy as they can be, right? That was originally what you said, yeah?
Yeah, that would say.
Applying that to retributive punishment, you said, well, as long as the as long as this person doesn't have family that would feel significantly, emotionally disturbed from this person's death, the victim, we should rehabilitate the person who did it, because if they could be rehabilitated beyond possibility of doubt, then they probably would, on net, not produce like a weird amount of unhappiness, right? That's like your argument?
Basically, yeah.
Right, but then, if I bring up that, well, dead people, basically, I said, like, is killing people wrong to achieve this, and you're saying maybe, now you have to go back and consider the added factor of what about the person that they killed? How much does that factor in?
Wait, but that, like, this is a very different thing, because, like, they're already dead in this situation, I guess, and now that they're dead.
Genocided.
Oh, well, we can't do anything about that then. What do you mean?
So genocide is retroactively okay?
It's not. How that doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that it's retroactively okay.
Why does it not make sense?
Because I'm just saying that, like, we shouldn't focus on that. We should focus on, like, how if we can't change that, then we should focus on the best outcome for the future.
That's not an answer to my question. Is it okay or is it not?
It's not okay to commit genocide, no.
No, but it's not
But
okay to
if
kill
people are
someone either.
already dead,
Yeah, he's saying
That's-
he's probably saying Germany would be okay to continue as a country. Let's not cull Germany.
Let's not cull Hitler.
That's more appropriate, I guess, suppose. Yeah, but still, Hitler is dead.
That's
Nice.
But
Congrats, boys.
Thanks. We
that
did it.
doesn't, that
We
doesn't
did it.
like that's not like that's not like a gotcha thing. Where like that doesn't disprove my logic at all. Still, like, we can still justify like Hitler's murder. We can still justify like World War II using that logical system, because we can say like, well, like we can't like just let countries do this. Obviously, Germany was really power hungry at the time. We needed to stop them. That makes sense. And also, like, there are a lot of people that really suffered from that.
I said just consider Germany.
Yeah, in a vacuum, then sure, yeah, that's yeah.
But if we were to make a hypothetical of like a global genocide, then
But this is us speculating about. I don't know though. I don't know, because like we're looking at this from
you don't place
this
any
hasn't
value
happened yet.
on death past the fact. You're
I don't
you're
know-
only
I don't
interested
know
in
if I-
prevention. You're not interested in anything
Yeah.
past prevention.
I guess
Which
so.
means that if you get away with it, you got away with it. That seems a little weird, right?
What? What? What?
Or
What do you
if,
mean?
like, even doing it, you already got away with it. If you manage to kill someone, you got away with killing them. Because you're implying that there
Okay.
would be harsher penalties for conspiracy to commit murder than there would be for murder.
Wait, how am I implying that?
Well, how else would
I'm
you?
not implying that at all.
How else could you?
We would just
I'm
use
sorry.
the same we'd use the same system where we just rehabilitate that person that was conspiring for murder.
It's hard to map this out because there's a lot of qualifiers, right? Like, this is assuming that we even get past. Like, this is all within the context of a hypothetical where nobody is sad that the victim died, right? So this is already past the point where I consider it not useful. But if, I mean, I don't know. I mean, so you do care about people dying, but you don't care about people being dead. But if someone was to try and make someone die, they would be the same as if that person had already died. So they should receive the same kind of punishment, regardless of if they were trying to kill someone or if they killed someone.
I mean,
which
we
I
should-
agree with.
whatever
right?
punishment they give, like it should just be appropriate for the situation. I don't know, like whatever it takes to rehabilitate them, I guess, is what we should focus on. The punishment for somebody who has already killed would probably be worse, but like that
But
would
why?
be that would be for the family's sake. But we've already like said that
Yeah,
we're not counting that, right?
ignoring that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it would be exactly the same, right?
Probably, yeah. Because in both situations, we're focusing as much as we can on rehabilitating the person, and we try to rehabilitate them and like study psychology as much as we can until we can be like more certain and be like use more effective ways of rehabilitation and be more certain like that they're rehabilitated.
Went through a game. Now we're looking at a scary bottomless pit. What?
I feel like
No pit?
I feel like you could
Shores of
probably.
a radiolarian lake. This is nothing like that.
What I'm struggling to understand is why death even matters to you, because it doesn't seem like it affects
Didn't
anything.
he say he isn't sure?
Well, that's
Yeah, I'm
not.
not sure.
That's not okay.
Why is that not okay?
Well, you can't really come to a conclusion, right?
So it's
Sure.
Well, I can't
Well, you
specifically,
can't
but I can
come to a
still
consistent conclusion.
maybe not with death specifically, but I can still use like that logical thought process, and it works in either scenario because I would say like, well, like this would lead to the best outcome, or this would lead to the best outcome.
But the best outcome
I
involves death to you, but you don't know how it involves death. And we're talking about penalties for murderers in which there is at least one dead person.
Yeah, I get my focus is definitely on the people who are still alive, right? I would want the best for those people.
Okay. But like, so it must be like a very small part. Like, you don't really consider the dead person very important.
Probably, yeah, because they're not going to get any benefit out of the person frying.
So if we could cull 1% of the world's most hated people, we should do it?
I'm down for that.
I'm glad that's your input.
Let's get those fuckers in North Korea while we're at it.
No, because like if we could turn them into better
Well,
people and somehow like if there was any other alternative, because I consider death to be a bad thing at the very least. Because I don't want to die, and I guess I would just like you know the golden rule: treat others how you want to be bloody treated. Am I right?
I win because if I killed someone, I would want to be sentenced to capital punishment. I think it's only right.
All right, there you go.
No, I don't know. It just seems. I don't know. I'm struggling to understand your value of death in this context. That's all.
I'm struggling
I
to
think that's a
understand the
hang-up.
value of death in general.
I think
But I
it's.
can still-
I think your conclusion is still wrong.
My
still-
conclusion might be wrong. Okay, I think I've said this I think I said this. I talked about how I think my thought process is valid. I think it's consistent. I just don't know if I have the right answer. Like, I would hope that most people would use that thought process of trying to produce the best outcome. Because other people probably are smarter than me. They're more dedicated to me when it comes to like these kinds of things. They're more educated. They could probably have a better solution than I would because they have more information than me. But like, I would hope.
A cop out.
It's not a cop-out. Because we're not talking about that. I'm not trying to, like... I'm not trying to say what the conclusion should be. I'm trying to argue for my thought process. Like, that
Isn't the conclusion
Your
of your
thought process leads up
important?
to a conclusion,
Yeah.
Yeah, but Yeah?
How would we apply
course.
your thought process to... Well, I mean, I guess the application of your thought process to the conclusion would be if we were to hit the first step of emotional trauma and we couldn't pass it, or we couldn't conceive of a way to measure it, or we couldn't legislate it in any way, then we wouldn't further follow your thought path.
Wait,
right?
I'm so confused. What can you repeat that?
So, like, I guess how you could use your thought process to further an outcome that is not your conclusion of retributive penalties are wrong would be if we got to the first step where there was a murder and then we checked to see if there was emotional distress from rehabilitating the murderer, and if we found that we couldn't quantify it, or we couldn't reduce it, or we couldn't legislate it in a way that makes sense and is understandable, then we just wouldn't further follow your thought pattern? Like, is that it? Is
Wait.
that how?
Like, are you saying that... Well, we would just use what information we have. You're saying that if we didn't have... Clear?
Wow.
Does that not sound silly to you?
It sounds silly to me that we're arguing about it, because it should seem obvious that, like, we should be trying to have the
You
best
understand
thing happen.
why I would label that as head in the clouds?
No, because I'm not trying to, like... I don't think so, no. I feel like it's obvious. Why is that head in the clouds? It should be just common sense that we should be pushing for the best outcome possible.
Exactly.
That's why it's not a useful thing to think. It's not a useful process to go through.
It is a useful process to go through, because what if people are ignoring it? What if people try to dispute that and try to say, well, what if we have this instead of a good outcome?
Do you...
Because sometimes that happens.
Does it?
Yes, I've given examples of it already.
What's your example of someone not looking for a good outcome?
Being angry at Colin Kaepernick.
Incorrect.
Okay.
The people who are angry at Colin Kaepernick think that the best outcome is society where black people are quiet and don't make a fuss, or don't exist.
Same thing.
I would say that's probably a pretty shitty outcome, to be honest. And I think that most people would agree with me. I feel like it would really the black people, and I think it would really, like, I think that a lot of people would be upset by that.
Okay, but you see how that's not, like, you're not just looking for the best outcome. You're looking for your best outcome, right?
I guess.
So you're not...
My best
really...
outcome most likely involves, like, most people being happy, though.
Something like that, though, because you're not sure...
I guess.
Exactly how to get around the problem of the things that can justify.
Yeah.
So your original point was my thought process is useful for making people think in such a way that leads to the best outcome. But now it's my thought process is useful in making people lead themselves towards my best outcome, or the outcome I think is the best.
I mean, I am not always going to know which outcome is going to be the best. I would hope that
and you don't know what's the best outcome.
That out.
Do you see why that's a problem? Your thought process leads to your preferred outcome, and you can't tell me what your preferred outcome is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
And that's not head in the clouds, or like not useful, or not productive, or anything? That's fine?
No, because if we don't follow that, then we're not going to get good outcomes.
How would we get any outcome from
if we didn't
your thought
follow
process
it,
if you don't know it?
Because I'm not the one who knows it, but I can still apply it. No, wait, I know it in a lot of situations. Like, for example, if I'm cooking an egg, I know that the best outcome isn't going to involve me sticking my fucking hand in the fire.
Debatable. For you,
What did
I
that
don't
have to
understand
do
the
with-
relevance of
What
that.
does that
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean? Why are you saying other people stick their hand in the fire and you have to tell us that?
No, but I'm saying that like this is an obvious thought process, but like there's more nuanced situations in which people don't achieve the best outcome due to like other factors.
Achieve what
Because-
you
What if
think
the
is the
egg-
best
Like
What
outcome.
if
maybe
the egg-
maybe they've been
Dude,
conditioned
what
to,
if the
maybe
fucking egg-
they
yes.
adhere to like arbitrary forms of tradition or something like that. What did you say, by the way?
What did the egg do? Where, like, surely the example you'd want would be one where.
Well,
someone has an
I think it was
opposing not.
what did Jared say?
What?
What was
You
I
said-
saying
you
that
said-
in
you-
response
you were
to?
saying that in response to like, where's an example? Where can you said where, like, that's an example of where you can use your process. Like he said, how can we ever use your process? What does it do? And your example was we can cook an egg.
Yeah, you wouldn't do dumb shit
But
basically that
why
would
would
lead
you
to
use that
bad
as an
outcomes.
example when all of us already know that? Like, what is the you're saying?
Because
nothing-
I've never tried to say that this is some profound like new information
But
that I
why
have.
did you mean it-
I've
why
been
did you
saying
make
it
it
from the
seem so
start that I feel like
dogmatic?
this is obvious.
Why did you try to make it so like dirt trash? Like, oh, everyone knows not
What-
to cook an egg.
What?
Like you're
What,
making
I-
it sound like you're saying nothing. Like you're just saying. Like what?
I'm
is
not.
that?
I'm not making it sound like it should say nothing. I'm pointing out a situation in which I'm hoping that it clarifies like what my position is.
Your thought process is basic
It's common
human
sense.
self-preservation.
Not just self-preservation.
That's
I
not
mean,
the, what
like
are the egg, what,
That's
what
all
was,
the egg thing says.
What was in the egg thing that
it's
wasn't?
about
How do you know, Lockie? I'm gonna ask you a question. How do you know that sticking your hand into the fire wouldn't make the egg taste better? You're sticking to useless tradition, aren't you? I don't know. I don't know. I didn't bring this to eggs.
I
That
know-
seems like a
it's weird
ridiculous
that he's
conclusion to
defending
make. I have no
egg.
proof.
I thought for sure, as soon as I asked, like, what is the point of the egg, he'd go, well, I just said some egg thing, I don't know. But no, this is an important point.
If your thought process is so fundamental that I still don't understand it. Like, your thought process is vague enough to be, it takes me to my best outcome. And if I ask you what your best outcome is, the answer is, I don't know, something to do with human happiness. And if we apply it to something like, isn't it? Is the family feeling emotional trauma that would not be offset by the outcome? And immediately, if this branches into no, or yes, rather, your thought process ends. And you've already agreed that the portion of cases where your thought process would go the other direction, where it continues, is incredibly small.
And my thought process would defer to professionals, and I would trust them to make the best outcome, right?
Do you see how that's not useful, though?
Why not? Because then, what if the professionals aren't looking at the best outcome and they're just doing what they think, like they're doing it by the book or something? Or like, what if we're looking at like this at a legislative level where they're like we're not looking at a specific situation, we're looking at like a blanket thing. We should be thinking about the philosophy of the purpose of punishment in general, and the purpose of punishment, I believe, should be rehabilitation and reformation. That's where it's useful. Instead, because that goes against people like adherence to tradition or concepts of like deserving and stuff. Because I would reject those things and focus on outcomes. That's
So if
where that
I-
philosophy would be applied.
So if I had a thought process, right? And my thought process was that everything that is not the death penalty is wrong, right? My flowchart leads to, did this person commit a crime, ask for the death penalty, etc., etc.? That's my affirmative, and that's where mine keeps going. And then my right-handed one is, no, I defer to the authorities, I defer to the professionals. Is my thought process useful?
No, because I'm saying my thought process. I'm saying that I don't have the answers, but I would want those professionals to have the thought process, like to have the same goal as me. I would advocate for that, right?
You don't even... We haven't even established that reformation is even the best outcome anymore because we haven't considered the death of the individual who was killed because you aren't able to quantify that for me.
Yeah, because I wouldn't have the answer for that.
So you want professionals to consider an answer that you haven't reached, but you want them to do it. I don't understand.
Well, because there's no way that I could say definitively, like with authority, what the right decision there is.
But for it to be useful, I think you should have to.
Maybe that's true.
Okay.
Okay.
We win.
I was just confused. That's all. I was just confused. Like do you agree that the example I just gave with the capital punishment thing was like a fair representation of like a, you know, like a contrast? Do you think that's fair? Or do you think that's not a fair characterization?
My brain's gone blank. Could you repeat that?
When I said that if my thought process flowchart was that I want people to consider that the death penalty is right always, and then I just branch whenever it goes the other way, I go, well, I defer to the authorities and the professionals and stuff. Like, do you think that's like a fair comparison? Like a obviously, like, I don't know what the word is, like an accentuated one, like a hyperbolic.
Well,
one.
no, because I don't think that you have a valid argument in that the death punishment is always correct. That's where my problem is. Right?
But where's your?
But
like if you felt like you had some kind of valid thought process and then it would end in deferring to professionals, then sure.
But do you have a rationale for yours? You said you can't. Yeah, that's literally what you said. So.
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again?
So you would only accept mine as useful and having a purpose if I actually was able to rationally argue and prove that there is grounds for me to believe that capital punishment is the right thing to do and that it should be considered by professionals. But you said yourself that you can't do that for yours, right?
I can do that for mine because I can say I would like to focus on the best outcomes.
But you don't know what the best outcome is. That's begging the question.
That doesn't
You're saying
matter. That doesn't matter because I can still apply my thought
Okay,
process.
I'm applying the best outcome, Lucky. I
can
think
still
capital
have a
punishment
goal.
is good
I can still
all
have
the
a goal
time.
and not know how to achieve it.
But I can say, because you've given me my out, because it's applicable to anything I want, I think capital punishment is good and should always be applied, and my argument for this is I just want the best outcomes. And I think that would lead to the best outcomes. How is that not the same thing you're doing?
Because you're prescribing a very specific thing now. And
You're
now we can argue whether or not that's going to
reformation
lead to the
of
best.
criminals.
Yes, yes, I am. I'm saying that that I feel like that would lead to the best outcome.
And I feel like killing them would lead to the best outcome.
Then we can argue that, but like that doesn't have anything to do with the outcome philosophy.
But you okay? But if
These are
we
two
can
different
argue
things
it,
we're
then you
arguing
think
now.
it. But if you think we can argue about it, or you think it's worth arguing about it, you think it's useful, right? You think it's a useful thought process?
Yeah. In
Okay.
specific situations. In general, it feels like it's common sense, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
So, okay. So originally, you said that it's not useful, but it is useful now. What changed?
Wait. Originally I said it's not useful. Originally I said, because it was probably in regards to a very specific situation in which you were like, is it useful here? And I was probably saying no to that. But
I think I just said the thought process.
Well, I was probably thinking about it like being specific, but if you're asking like, can we find uses for it? The answer is yes.